Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you are doing well. We are back with another one of our podcast videos and I'm joined by Tony once again. How you going, mate?
Good.
As the viewers can tell by the thumbnail, they will know that today we're talking about sacrifice. So firstly, before we get into it, thank you to all of those people that have supported the videos that have gone out so far, whether that be short or the longer videos as well. We've got plenty more to come, but what we would love is your thoughts, what you're wanting from us in the comments below. If there's any topics that are pressing for us to cover, but I'm going to let you kick us off, Tony, by starting off with what your thoughts are around sacrifice.
All right. So, sacrifice is almost a roadblock to some people between what they want and how to get there. So, it can often be used. It's such a broad term, sacrifice. It literally can be used for anything. You know, like I'm sacrificing being at home with my wife to make this podcast. You know, you sacrifice sleep to go to the gym. You sacrifice, the hustle now at, sub 30 so that by the time you're 50, you relax. So it's one of those things where I believe your goals are the difference between what you're willing to sacrifice versus what you're willing to not sacrifice. So, I guess for Paul, it would be, who doesn't like having a snack at night before bed? But he knows he has to sacrifice that in order to keep his body fit and healthy. It might be a matter of business stuff. It's the amount of calls you make. You sacrifice the time. You sacrifice dealing with the rejection in order to succeed. Now, when I say succeed, it doesn't mean a monetary thing. It means achieving your goal. So, your goal for what you want to sacrifice is obviously different to mine. But I think in turn, sacrifice is something that the world has become a little bit conditioned against. Not in all aspects, but, like people used to have to save to buy a pair of shoes. Oh, don't worry about that. I'll have to pay it. I consider that a sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's a monetary sacrifice in order to do that. Now, you can't do that with everything, but it's just little things that people have become conditioned to now, which allow us to not sacrifice and still get what we want. So, you can take supplements to help you lose weight.
You look at things like Ozempic, look at, there's plenty of other options. And I think you're right about the afterpay stuff because it almost is designed for people to get what they want without, no interest, which means
it's designed
what's
to get
the
it
risk?
Now.
Yeah.
And there's no sacrificing now. That's the thing. So,
but does that create a window where people spend above their means though, which then creates a bigger problem?
It does. And that's the thing, like the way, and it's a very simple term. And I think it was Kevin Hart, I reckon, that said it. He goes, if I can't afford it twice, I can't have it. So kind of makes sense, to some degree. Everybody needs a car. And, not everybody can say, I've got $100,000 so I can buy a $50,000 car. Everybody's got to give or take here or there. But like a pair of shoes, if you got to afterpay a $200 pair of Nikes, you probably shouldn't have them. That's how I look at it. But we won't talk about the monetary side of things, and neither of us are mortgage brokers or financial planners. More around goals, I think, in sacrifice in terms of results. So probably touches on the goal setting stuff, which we went over a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
Where, sacrifice an hour a day to go to the gym, right? No one really enjoys the sacrifice. It's the reward after. And really, the sacrifice is never that great. And I want to share a story which I told Paul about the other day. I met a guy in the gym. Was sitting in the sauna. He was an ex-Navy Marine, SEAL, from America, full Yank dude, massive, full of tats, talks like a real American, funny as. Anyway, I asked him, I said, tell me about your time, serving your country and whatever else. And he goes, it was all about sacrificing. He told me one story specifically where he didn't get into too many details, but he basically said, we got told to go do this mission. 3 hours out of the mission, they basically said there might be people waiting for you on the other side, so there's no guarantees that you're going to make it, right? So write your letters to your loved ones, say your goodbyes in your letters if need be, whatever you got to get out of your conscience, and then go. So he was like, okay, so we basically got told we might die, but go to work and good luck. So he did the mission. Unfortunately, not everybody came back, but he was one of them that did survive, and he uses it where he says to his kids, like, you don't want to get up early to go train for football or whatever because you love it so much. Think about that. The sacrifice of getting up for an hour training session is much better than the sacrifice of
losing your life.
Yeah. You know, he had to put his life on the line, not knowing the outcome, to fend for his family, I guess you could say. So, not saying that he tried to sacrifice himself to, you know, put food on his kitchen table, but that's just an example of things people have to do. So when you think about sacrificing an hour to go to the gym in the morning, but you'd rather stay in bed, well, you're better off. So since he told me that story, I've always thought, you know, it's really not that hard. There's the, you know, the reasons we sacrifice things and what we sacrifice for is nowhere near that.
Yeah, and that's when you can put it into perspective of what are the bigger things at play, but it comes back to, you know, I think goals, sacrifice, consistency are all very interwoven, which is why we've started with the three, because you could take elements from all three of our episodes that are now up and go, well, I need the goal, I need to be consistent, and then part of that process is what do I have to change in my current behaviour in order to make that happen. So I think you could probably find millions and millions and millions of stories around what people have sacrificed. But what I like about it is it's a trait that people that are successful, they all have to some degree, have had to sacrifice. And, you know, what I listen to a lot is a lot of football managers that speak about their careers. And the one thing that they come back to all the time is the family sacrifice. So for their, you know, for their partners or for their kids, that's what is the sacrifice. For some of them, that's been the breakdown of families because that's just the nature of the job. Like they work full on. For others, it's, you know, they sacrifice a social life or they sacrifice being able to be at events. And you look at elite athletes, you know, in order for them to do their job, they sacrifice, you know, birthdays and anniversaries and all, you know, Christmas.
Look at the NBA players, they play on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
Yeah.
There's a sacrifice there,
you
know. Some sacrifices, though, are forced. And this is one that's not controversial, but like, you know, a forced sacrifice could be you lose your job and you have to sell that brand new car you bought. Like, you have to. You don't have a choice. So there are circumstances where sacrifice is inevitable, but I think sometimes for some people it is a bit of a wake-up call for a bigger picture. You know, like for me, for example, sacrificing time at home to go to the gym, right? What does it mean? It means, well, it's one less hour a day I get to spend with the little one, but my fitness and health obviously comes into play in life as well as trying to have a family.
Yeah.
And I believe that you just be better. Like, you just be a better person.
Better version of yourself.
Better version of yourself just for sacrificing. So, like, even me, right? Training, cycling, whatever, doesn't actually make me better at my job. Doesn't make me a better father, but what it does do is it makes me better. So then I've got more mental clarity because I've gone to the gym. All the BS going on, whatever, stresses about work, it's left in the gym and it's done. So then I can become a better person, a better version of myself, like Paul said. And I think as well, having the plan, writing it down, talking about it, making that real, like it's real sacrifice now. You know, it will just make you better. There's no alternative. There is no alternative. No successful person in the world has not ever sacrificed something. Sorry. No successful person has never not had to sacrifice. Like Michael Jordan, he definitely made sacrifices. Before school, after school, training. You know, when he got cut from the team, he got told he was never good enough. He made it his lifelong doing to be the best and invite the coach that cut him to his Hall of Fame induction. Not saying do that, but
what that shows, especially for what I do as well, you don't actually see what people sacrifice, and that's the kicker for me. Like, you hear about it when it's the really, really elite because they have the careers they have. They then get asked about what was it that got you there. But think about the thousands and thousands just of sports people, number one, Olympians, there's that many Olympians that I can't name that have had to train at all hours of the morning with low funding. Like, they're not in high grossing sports. You look at all the track and field athletes.
Yeah.
That they've sacrificed more than your footballer because their moment to shine only comes every 4 years for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's an Olympic year this year, and I'm listening to a lot of information around the Olympics at the moment, which is why it's fresh on my mind.
Yeah.
But I've listened to a lot of podcasts and a lot of interviews with Olympians, and they're doing some crazy numbers, and the recognition they get for what they do doesn't do it justice, but they do it for the love of their sport, and I actually appreciate it more because they're actually doing it for the love of the sport 100%. And not for fame and recognition. Okay, 100%. If they go and win an Olympic gold medal, then they're the talk of the town for 3 days.
Yeah.
But then that's gone. You don't hear anything other than your Michael Phelpses and your Ian Thorpes.
Usain Bolts.
Like, they are the creme de la creme that do it for 4. And Kipchoge, as a marathon runner who's been running Olympic marathons since 2004. So for 20 years, he's been a relevant marathon runner. I've only named 4 Olympians.
Yeah. There's a few missed out, I'm sure.
I could probably stretch it to another 15.
Name a pole vaulter.
Steve Hooks.
Okay, bad example.
Because he's Australian and had funny hair. But I know what you're saying. Like
name a guy that runs hurdles.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know.
Michelle Janicki is an Australian one. But you ask me you name a hammer thrower or a discus thrower or
no idea.
A long jumper or a high jumper. Like, you remember moments, but that's all it is, And I can see what the Olympics are doing. This is a whole other thing, but they're actually bringing in things like golf and soccer and, a bit more high profile, professional sports to go away from the amateur side of things. Yeah. But when it comes back to the topic we're talking about around sacrifice, is I actually think they are the best examples of sacrifice because
they're not getting paid to represent their country either.
They are, but very minimally.
Minimal.
And
they're not getting paid for the sacrifice before.
No, they're not getting paid. No, they're not getting paid for all the training that they're doing. They're getting very minimal money for world championships, but they have to qualify for those world championships.
Yep.
Like, it's a pretty backwards model. And I remember the International Olympic Committee, so it's the International IOC, I think it is. They retain 80% of the revenue. I think. Don't quote me on that, but they are retaining so much money.
Well, they would have to pay for the actual Olympics to happen, like the running costs, the staff, the this,
the federations that are hosting it are paying for it. So now the French government and the French Olympic Committee would be paying big portions of it. When you say revenue,
you mean like views from TV, like stuff that people buy at the events?
That's what I am. I don't have the hard facts, but I heard it on the Real Science of Sport podcast last week that the IOC are taking monster revenue and only distributing. So it gets distributed to the federations based off of the gold medals that they win.
Okay.
So your Chinas, your Americas, your Russias, those 3. So Australia do well in the swimming, but track and field are pretty average. The countries that do better get better money, but more often than not, they're bringing more athletes too. So if you're from a country that's only bringing X amount, then you're only bringing in so much. So 100%. The idea around the Olympics, we're going to talk about this forever. The idea around the Olympics is it's about the prestige of being an Olympian.
Yeah.
But I think they actually deserve to be paid.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's never about a dollar figure title. Like, I dare say, the ones that make the most money are probably...
They then get their sponsorships off of it, though, and that's the argument, is you get the exposure, you get sponsorships, you make your money. Anyway, park that, because that's
another conversation for another day, for sure.
Yeah. So, for those that haven't seen already, Tony actually posted a short... Well, I posted it on his behalf, but is a short of Tony. From by the time you see this, it may have been a solid week ago. By the time I catch up with the editing that I have to do for these longer episodes around sacrifice and some thoughts that he had, particularly around Greek Easter time. Do you want to maybe talk to some of the motivation of what you brought to that short? Because there were some good points in there, and we're hoping that it was going to create some discussion. So hopefully you can go and watch that and come back to add your comment to the bottom of this. But what was your motivation to some of those thoughts that maybe came across to you whilst you're away?
It's always easy to think when you have a clear head and you haven't got work around you and whatever else. But like, it's pretty, I guess it's simple. And I think we overcomplicate things ourselves. Like, we make things so much harder for ourselves. So sacrifice, when you say that word, sounds like I have to give something up to get something in return. And that's what it is, right?
It has a negative connotation,
but it's a negative, exactly right. It's got a negative thought to it. So the way I look at the sacrifice is it's the hurdle. It's only the jump to get to where I am. It's not the roadblock, so it becomes part of habit, I think.
Keep talking.
It becomes part of habit, I think, where sacrifice just becomes day-to-day routine. So, like, you don't think about when you wake up to go to the gym or you go for your walk in the morning, like, oh, I'm sacrificing. It's just a habit.
Yeah, and that comes from consistency, though.
It does come from consistency. So I think it all ties in with the goal setting as well. So if your why is big enough, you're going to sacrifice. And really, we don't have to sacrifice arms and legs. We're probably talking about...
We're more talking about sacrificing time. Yeah.
Time. Because that's all it is. Even in my work, it's time. It's the time to make more calls. It's the time to do more letterbox drops. The time to meet more people. That's all it is. Right? There comes a time where, like, all right, don't do it anymore. Because if I was ringing people at 7:30 at night, they probably wouldn't be too happy with me. But it's about the time barring and time of day that you're doing the activity. So, if Paul, you have to be at school to work, right? I don't have to be in my office to work. So for me, time can work in my favor, and sacrifice can mean, well, I don't have to get up at 5 today. I can get up at 6 and still go to the gym and still be at work by 9. Or I can stay at the gym, work till 10, do my emails, whatever, then go. So I think as well, people often get caught up in more so what they're giving up as opposed to what they're actually getting. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, 100%, because it's easier to look at what's changing, because more often than not, what you're seeking won't appear the next day. So a lot of the health sacrifices, you don't get instant gratification.
No, they're not overnight.
Depending on what your goals are, if you're doing things like resistance training or running, you can kind of start to get results after a week and a half, 2 weeks, because you start to see small incremental changes. But with the perceptions of society, and if you're chasing things like physique or body composition or physical changes, that stuff takes years. And people get 6 months in and go, I don't have a six-pack yet. And they go, well, stuff it. Why am I not eating chocolate? Why am I not eating what I want to eat? What, and wheels fall off the wagon. And that's that whole fad diet thing, because it's like you put this to work for 6 months, 3 months, see some results, but go, it's not good enough. And the wheels fall off and you lose the consistency and you're back to square one. And that's for me where any health mindset, mental health, any substantial change that you want to make, instead of it being a sacrifice and a short to long-term goal, it needs to be a lifestyle change, because if you're committed enough to it for long enough, you'll then get the benefit of said change.
And that ties in with what I was saying. Sacrifice just becomes habit. Like sacrifice half an hour a day to go for a walk. Then it's no longer thinking about, the dreaded walk. It's just, you
just got to do it. You're programmed to do it.
It kind of becomes robotic. It just becomes automatic that you wake up and you go for your morning walk and that's it. It's no longer a sacrifice. So sacrifice can be a short-term pain. I think people, again, and this comes back to your comment, Paul, overcomplicating it and making it a negative word. You know, like, oh, I have to sacrifice. Like, if people, and I'll speak from a business world perspective, if people realize what sacrificing 6 months' time would do for their business for years of longevity, everybody would do it. But no one's willing to do the short-term pain. You know, you sacrifice not having sugar, right? Because you know it's not good for you, and you've realized that that's the best way for you to drop some weight, and you've done that. But now, do you want sugar?
I have my moments, but, you know, look, I'm not perfect, but I know if it's 6 out of 7 or 5 out of 7 days, you're making it up.
You sort of go, all right, well, I'm sacrificing Monday through to Saturday, being strict, and then Sunday, if I want to go to the pub with the boys and have a beer and have a schnitty, then I can. And you're not out doing the work you've done for those 6 days.
Yeah, and that's balance. Like, you also can't, you know, there's this whole debate on, you know, how sustainable being cut is and all of that, and it's not. Like, there's, for as good as the publicity is, and obviously there's a whole range of social influencers, which we're going to talk about at some point as well, there's not a lot of talk around sustainability of that physique, because people that are paid to present in that way aren't operating. I think we spoke about this last week.
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit.
They're not operating at that level all the time too. So there is a bit of a
misperception.
There's a misconception. There's a realism element of it where it's like, okay, what is a true representation of truly healthy? And I think that's, you know, that's very, I've just lost the word. It's not concrete. There's not an idea.
It's not like a standard. It's not like that's how you are 24/7. Is that kind of what you're trying to say?
Yep. It's very subjective.
That's the one.
Far out. It's been a long day.
Well, put it like, there's a guy at the gym, right, where I train, and, you know, he's ripped 12 months of the year. Like, his six-pack's out all the time. And when I asked him about what he eats, what he drinks, the supplements, this, that, and the other, oh, yeah, you know, I do, you know, I eat my meal preps for lunch and meal preps for dinner. You know, breakfast might just be oats and a protein shake. I'm like, okay.
Sounds like me.
Right? But then I'm also like, well, what about all these other supplements? Oh, yeah, I take fat burner. I take, you know, nighttime burner. I take metabolism stop. I was like, that's not sustainable and not healthy.
It's good for a cut. And
it's good for a cut. But this dude, like, I've seen him
not
winter,
change.
summer, like, six-pack. I'm like, how do you do it? It can't be healthy. Right, like, I look at them, and then we start saying, oh, I take pre-workout, then I take this, then I take this, and I've got this. And I'm like, man, there is so many chemicals in all that stuff that I go, is it eventually just going to catch up with you, and you can't keep it that way?
It's easier for males to cycle in that cycle because it doesn't impact. We don't have a reproductive system that it impacts. So I know I'm really careful with how I'm going to frame this, especially for women who are seeking with their partners or, you know, to have children.
Yeah.
You can't have your fat levels too low, and that's something where it's a delicate fine line for me to tread on, because it's not my experience, but it's a true issue. But it's actually something to consider, that, like, you need to maintain, and this is where the perception of things socially happens, because for me, you can't have the physique but then be wanting to start a family, but then there's the social pressure. Well, there's a few things there, which we're going to talk about at another date, but I think they're things to consider, because I think that's going to be pretty soon in our video list anyway, so that's probably something that we're dabbling in.
So for, like, when I talk to him, like, it just buzzes me. And maybe he's just one genetic guy that can do that.
The thing is, though, it's like, we don't know his full story. So we don't know where he's come from.
I don't know if he's on steroids. I don't know if he's taken any other stuff.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that what's his fitness journey been to get him to that point? So is he extremely driven to be at that point, because he might have been a bigger guy at some point in his life, and he's worked hard, and he goes, I'm going to do everything possible now. Because I know what it's like, or who knows. But there's a level of sacrifice, to wrap this conversation up, in that example. there has to be a level of sacrifice that he goes through, because I know what it's like 5 to 6 days a week to eat the same food, because you want to control every little gram that goes into your body. Am I perfect at it? No. But especially when I'm at work, it's easier because it's just, you know, I don't have to take food and I don't get time to eat. So when I'm on holidays, that's where I kind of let the wheels fall off the wagon a little bit. But I know...
But that's human nature as well.
But I know I need... Not the summer holidays, because summer holidays I know I've got 6 weeks, so it's kind of easier for me to just do it. But in the 2-week holidays, I kind of give myself 10 days of the 14 to like not go crazy, but I don't get my fitness pal out and I don't count my calories.
You got to enjoy what you sacrifice for as well.
Yeah.
Like, you
100%.
would go stir crazy if I rang you and said, hey, we're all coming to my house to watch the grand final and I'm having pizzas, and you go, oh, I've got to bring my chicken and veg to eat instead. You'd go crazy. So you've got to have a balance with the sacrifice, but the balance and the sacrifice have to work hand in hand. You can't say I'm sacrificing having no sugar in my coffee, but then at night eat a bag of M&Ms. That just doesn't work that way. Like, that short-term sacrifice is not...
Well, you're not going to get anywhere because...
You're not going to get anywhere. You probably tell yourself you feel better.
You're only substituting and not actually sacrificing at that point. You're picking and choosing when it's convenient to you to do it. So, look, I think we'll leave it at that point there because we've kind of gone on a few different points in the end. But the positive around what we're bringing up is the impacts of some social perception is going to be pretty close to the next video, I think, that we're going to release. Sure. So if you're keen for that one, make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe, and we will see you guys very, very soon for another episode.